at the end of class. Take them home for the weekend, look at them. If you've got questions and problems, come see me on Monday, right? Yeah, as I've said before, most things, with this class, as a whole have been good. Things have been moving in the right direction. I think a lot of people struggle with this assignment just because it's kind of new and it's challenging. I get it. So, I think some people were, kind of a little overwhelmed with the research and how to manage it across here. So, didn't constitute for, bad things happened if you failed to insert citations, if you didn't follow the AMA rules for, the references page and those kind of things, right? So, I know a lot of people still struggling with some grammar issues as well in here. It was a little more flexible on the grammar issues if you were doing a good job controlling the argument. But if the grammar issues were really just compounding what the problems were in the argument, then it's at some point in time, just got to stop. So if that is you and you had a serious problem with this paper, well then come see me on Monday. Let's talk about how we fix it. There were some strong papers in here as well. Not as many as I was hoping. This is the kind of thing that I was hoping this class was going to be able to take it to that next level early, but you still got paper number 5 to get there, right? So demonstrate that what you're doing in paper 4, you're learning from your mistakes and you're making it better for paper 5. So we got one more chance. If at any point in time, I just kind of had this conversation with somebody the other day, where I asked a student, I said, well, how are you doing in that class? I'm doing advice with freshmen and stuff now. And the student says, well, I think I'm doing okay. And I said, well, why wouldn't you know if you're doing okay in the class? And she's like, well, I don't know. She goes, my professor doesn't tell us our grades. We don't walk around telling people grades, right? I mean, if you want to know your grades, come talk to us, right? I mean, if you want to know where you stand in this course or any course, ask your professor for 5 minutes to sit down and say, hey, can I look at my grades? Can I find out where I am? Can I, kind of project out what I'm going to get in this course? If I do this on this test or this on the final exam, what can I get in the final? I mean, we're always happy to talk to you about that stuff. So know where you stand in your courses, right? Don't just drift around aimlessly. Ask questions, right? We're here to help you and guide you. I'm not going to track people down and, run up to you on the sidewalk and say, hey, what, you need to come talk to me about your grades. Because if you don't come to me, I'm going to think you don't care. Which, I don't know, maybe you don't. I think that's fine too. It's up to you. Right? I can't control your emotions. All right. We'll talk about that when the end paper's back. So let's get to these, right? So as we talked last time, when we have 3 independent clauses, our objective is to turn this into 1 sentence, right? But with the 3 independent clauses, now you can start doing some thinking about what's the most important of these independent clauses so that you can raise that one up to be the independent clause of the sentence at the end of the sentence. That you can take the information that is secondarily important, move that up to the front of the sentence, put it in an introductory phrase. And you can take the information that is the least important and you can stick it in the middle of that sentence, surround it with commas as a non-essential element, be a positive phrase if you want to practice doing what we're doing. And you'll have all 3 levels of sentence variation represented. And you'll also be able to control the levels of importance that your reader will see. So let's see what you can do, right? I know you started this last time, but let's start putting some samples up. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get through this, and then I'd like to move you into a short paragraph and say, all right, here's a paragraph full of short, simple sentences that are all kind of chopped up. And this is really an important task because learning how to identify what is important out of your paragraphs and out of your sentence structure is going to be key. I found that a lot of you in writing paper number 4 were writing sentences, Jones conducted a study, and Smith, analyzed data in his study, and I'm just looking around going, That's not a good focus of action, right? I mean, we all know that they conduct studies or that they analyze information. We need to know what they're doing with it in terms of our argument, right? So it's focusing that independent clause, getting that subject and verb on the most important actions, and those actions are how they contribute to the argument. All right, so let's see what you can do here. Let's get it done. If you get something written, let me know. I'll put some samples up on the overhead, and we'll critique. Work together. Talk about this openly. We're probably not going to have to write this 5 times because you're going to be using two phrases in your sentence. So if you're going to say, beauty levels, 2 levels. This one was just a single. This is the introductory element. So now do an introductory element with a non-central element. Which one are you trying to do? All right, so infinitive is always going to be a to plus a verb. Okay, right? So the word to is always going to be in there linked with a verb. So even to be, right, would be an infinitive, right? To think, to sit, to write, to everything, right? To any type of actions that would be infinitive. To can be a preposition as well, right? To store, right? I could say to store, but it's not to plus verb, right? So now you got to think to yourself, well, what are all the other prepositions? Well, there's of is a preposition, in and on and over, which are the obvious ones. As can sometimes be a preposition. So all you're looking for is kind of that short string of words with the word shows relationship. So you probably use them all the time, right? So think of it in the library, it's a prepositional phrase. Right? To be, an exception to, there's an infinitive phrase. It's have been here. Yeah, so yeah, you can find those types of phrases everywhere. If you look at your papers, keep these papers around also, because next week I'm going to have you looking through your papers for these types of phrases, right? And sentence structure. So, find out what your natural right. But because most of you are doing this, you just don't understand why you're doing it. And then what I want you to be able to see is when you do vary sentence structure and you use these different things, are you doing it for the purpose of putting the important pieces of information in the independent clause of each end of the sentence, or are you kind of subverting that order and putting the important pieces of information up in front and kind of like an introductory phrase and then ending your sentences? A lot of people are ending sentences with these non-essential dependent clauses, right? What's that? Yeah. So, label this, label that. What do you like to do? So there's no very good guaranteed.
I think I'm like stuck on the.
Yeah, they're all over it. Well, I mean, identifying problems.
Yeah, that's right. Is this the one?
Yes. Yeah, okay, so acting as a hidden prohibition against freedom, so that's your gerund. Then cause Rhode Island, the smallest state, 24. Well, so you get your gerund and you get your class operator. No, because that is the bit of the phrase, but you're not using it as an introductory element or as an essential element, you're just using it in the middle of a sentence. So that happens, there's gonna be phrases all over the place, you're just not gonna mark them. You're using it for the purpose of either the non-essential element or the introductory element. Okay, you're doing this though in the middle of the sentence. I want you to use it as an introductory element.
The front gerund has a Rhode Island. So oh yeah, you're right. That one is
Yeah, that doesn't work very well. Yeah, just can't really stack them up on top of each other. It really becomes a problem. You need an ing or a specific word here, so this needs to be, acting as a. All right, you got it. All right. Right, so here's your independent clause. Rhode Island, so to provide a haven. Rhode Island is. No, to provide a haven, then Rhode Island some land. See the problem there? You have to say, what's the purpose of this infinitive phrase? You say to provide. Rhode Island had to do something, provide something, right?
I just wanted to see is this line. So is this
Prepositional and yeah. Very good. Prepositional. You do. This is an introductory element. This is a non-essential element. Your independent clauses, Rhode Island played great role. So prepositional, non-essential, positive. You have your independent clause. Yes. What's that? Played a great part in American history. Now, what is that? You got to label these things. Yeah, because you're describing Rhode Island. So plain Great American history comes from Rhode Island. Take a union, so now you can have. There's the parts of there's your house. Rhode Island. History of Rhode Island. Right, so she comes from Rhode Island, Rhode Island. Ooh, I like that CD where it's refers to the very top of the Okay, so you get here and here. Required during the Civil War. If you learn anything, you can probably get some strategies. At least you know what's going on. Right. Right, you want both of them. Introductory and okay, good. All right, well, we're gonna go. All right, here we go. Here are the 5 sentences for the 2 different types of sentences. We'll do Rhode Island first. And I'll show you essentially what are some good examples and what you'll learn from this, what you should be taking away from this. For times, some sentences, some sentence styles work better than others, right? Some phrases will work, more appropriately. The good news is that you need to recognize when you've got a struggling sentence, and you need to be able to throw it out, and you've got strategies to make it better, right? And the strategizing should start with you thinking through, what do I need to identify as my independent clause first? You should be looking at your paragraphs. This is a good thing to do, right? You should be taking a look at your paragraphs, and you should be thinking to yourself, this paragraph needs to end up down here at my argument. So I've got all this data and all these other things going on in here. What you should be able to do is pull the independent clauses out of your sentence structure, right, throughout this paragraph. And they should pretty much create a skeleton of the process of your thinking that gets you to this argument. You should be able to take out all the other stuff, all of those introductory elements and non-essential elements, take out all those things and focus on solely on your independent clauses to your paragraphs, and that should provide a logical structure for how you ended up at that point. Yeah, I mean, that's, when I'm reading and I come across independent clauses, it's like, that's the thing that, starts standing out in the paragraph. So I'm working around and getting to that independent clause. I'm working through transition, I'm getting to that independent clause. And I'm working through another transition and getting to that independent clause. So by the time I get to that paragraph, I've got an independent clause that makes my argument. Yeah, that's where you should be. You'll get there. All right. You gotta be a good reader to be a good writer. So, all right, let's take a look at the gerund within a positive. Being a haven for individuals seeking religious freedom allowed Rhode Island, the smallest state in the Union, to play a great part in American history. Being a haven allowed, there's my verb. So being a haven allowed Rhode Island to do something. Actually, this is an infinitive phrase here too, right? To play a great part. But we're not marking this as an infinitive phrase for the purpose of our exercise because it's not an introductory element. I want you to use infinitive phrases as introductory elements. But you should know, prepositional phrases, infinitive phrases, participial phrases are going to be all over your papers. You're just going to mark 2 of them that act as introductory elements. Okay. So there's the gerund. Being allowed Rhode Island to do something. The participle. Providing a haven for religious freedom is an adjective, ing word, describing Rhode Island. So providing a haven for religious freedom, Rhode Island, oh, there's the appositive again, the smallest state in the Union, played a great part in American history. That one works really well with the sentence, right? I mean, the sentence is Rhode Island played a great part in American history. Well, the focus is that Rhode Island played a great part. The focus is not on that it provided a haven for religious freedom, right? So in both of these sentences, Rhode Island, or being a haven allowed Rhode Island to do something. But in this sentence down here, it's Rhode Island played a great part in American history. That's the most important part. Oh, it was caused by them providing a haven for religious freedom. But that's not the most important thing. The prepositional phrase. In America's history, Rhode Island, the smallest state, played a great role by providing a safe haven for religious freedom. Yep. Rhode Island played a great role by providing a haven. So look at this. By providing, right? There's the prepositional phrase. By is a preposition, right? So by providing a haven for religious freedom, those are both prepositional phrases. They're just tacked on to the subject verb object. Rhode Island played a great role. There's a subject verb object, there's a root of the sentence, and there's a bunch of phrases around it. But these phrases are the ones that are helping move the sentence along. I'm taking the whole bit about it being the smallest state in the Union, and I'm subordinating that every time because it's not important. It's relevant that Rhode Island, kind of, isn't it cute that Rhode Island is so small and it was so, important, right? That's essentially what this is saying. It's not the main part of the sentence. And then finally, the infinitive. To provide a safe haven, Rhode Island, small state, practiced religious freedom and play a large role in America's history. So take a look at this one. So to do something, to provide, there's a 2+ verb combination. Rhode Island practiced religious freedom and played a large role. 2 verbs, 1 independent clause, right? Compound verb now just takes those 2 issues and makes them 1 independent clause. Any questions about those? Obviously, there's different ways to do this. Everybody's got different ideas. People might have emphasized different elements on their sentences. Doesn't matter. Most of them will work. All right, take a look at this one. We're in Virginia now. The gerund, ing word, acting as the subject of a sentence. It's got to be tacked on or attached to a verb. There it is right there, cause. So remaining loyal to the king during the English Civil War and being the oldest English county, compound gerund. How about that one? All right? Remaining and being caused. 2 gerunds in a compound construction. So this is really kind of interesting, right? That remaining and being caused something to happen, right? I mean, that's a good way to approach that sentence. Caused Virginia to be nicknamed the Old Dominion. So if you take a look at this, this is no introductory elements, no non-essential elements. This is just an independent clause just showing primary importance, right? I mean, if we go back to these over here, just want to draw your attention to this, right? This is secondary importance, this is tertiary importance, and this is primary importance, right? Primary because it's the independent clause, tertiary because it's a non-essential element, secondary because it's an introductory element. But notice this one, it's just 1 independent clause. No introductory elements, no non-essential elements. But just combining things together to make one independent clause, one primary important element. Pretty cool. All right, nickname the Old Dominion. There's an ED word, acting as an adjective describing Virginia. That's the participle. Virginia was the oldest of the English colonies and remained loyal. So now take a look at this. Here's the bit about being nicknamed. That's secondary importance. And then Virginia was the oldest and remained. Notice in this case, I've got a subject and two verbs. So I've got secondary importance, primary importance. And before I had a compound subject up here, now I've got compound verbs down here. Still one independent clause, right? Virginia was and remained, and in this one was remaining and being caused. That's fancy. Right? I mean, that's creative. It's a good way to handle it. I'm not saying that this is magic or anything, right? These are just words on the page, and just pulling them together in different ways. So he goes with a primary sentence here, a secondary and a primary here. And now look what he's going to do. He's going to go primary, secondary, tertiary. Right? It's trifecta. Nicknamed the Old Dominion. Virginia, oh, by the way, the oldest English colony, remained loyal to the king. Here's the secondary importance. Here's the primary because it's my independent clause. And here's the tertiary. All three levels represented. One sentence, one primary point. One independent clause, one introductory element to do primary and secondary. One independent clause, one introductory element, one non-essential element, primary, secondary, tertiary. And then the last one. During the English Civil War, prepositional phrase, Virginia, the oldest English colony, remained loyal and received. So remained and received, another compound verb. So he goes secondary, primary, and then tertiary. Got all three levels again, just doing the prepositional phrase there. So now he's just showing off. Really good. Isn't it cool to see language being manipulated and strategized that way? Isn't that exciting? Know that you have the power to manipulate words and make meaning and have people react to the words you use just by thinking a little bit, right? Yeah. Should be going home this weekend thinking, wow, this is exciting stuff. All right, so now let's put the next challenge up. Here's a paragraph about erosion. You environmentally savvy people like things like this. So here it is, a bunch of simple sentences, right? It sounds like a third grader writing. Many rivers flow. They take the most direct route. They flow quickly. They flow slowly. Rapidly moving water wears away the land. The wearing away process is called. The planting of trees, shrubs, and grasses can prevent. Ugh. Right? It's exhausting to read something like that. No continuity, no flow. But what you need to do is you need to look at this paragraph and start thinking to yourself, all right, what are my most important elements? Where do I need my independent clauses to be? How do I get from this part of my paragraph to this part of the paragraph? What's my flow of ideas? How do I strategize to get my independent clauses in that position? What's on here that can be subordinated? What's on here that can be put into a non-essential element? How can I control all this information to get a paragraph that has superb meaning? Huh? See what you can come up with in 15 minutes. On Monday, we're going to start doing sentence types. 4 different types of sentences. We're going to do the same thing all over again. Play around with sentence types. That's independent and dependent clauses there, not just phrases. Yeah. You'll have so much at your disposal to control information that being on the bus is gonna be so easy. Right? You'll spend so much time poring over how to control that information. The careless writer will make an obvious mistake in the first sentence. So. Just rewriting. Why are you practicing bad writing? That's it? Next year, next semester, actually, I'm converting the textbook to completely electronic version. So then you can just download it.
Are you going to install in one sentence?
Yeah, no, wait, not the whole thing. I mean, I want several sentences in here, but I want certain things identified as independent clauses. All right, so I guess we should just stop and talk about this for a minute. So what are the independent clauses that you want to preserve? What are the ones that, what do you think deserves the attention of an independent clause? What do you think needs to be fished out of this paragraph and identified as the thing you're going to build around? What are the main points? What?
Yeah, but I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the directness is one. Why? Because we're talking about erosion, and it's the directness of water that causes erosion, right? So that's one that you can preserve, I would think. Sure. So a lot of people may make the mistake of saying, taking the most direct route, comma, many rivers flow out to sea. Did you write that? Anybody write that sentence in here? Admit it, come on, you did. You did? Right. Yeah, that's a careless mistake, right? Because flowing out to sea is not the important part. That's got nothing to do with erosion. Unless you're in Louisiana, right, where you've got the silt building up out there, right, where the Mississippi pours out. But that's really not a factor. Flowing out to sea is not the factor of erosion. It's the directness of the flow that causes erosion. All right, so don't get it backwards. Don't just create sentence variation for the purpose of creating sentence variation. Create it around what's important and what's not important. All right, so the directness is important. What else? The what? Okay, the speed. So what are you going to do with this, though? You've got quickly on sides of mountains, slowly on flat terrain. I mean, you've got rapidly moving water. You've got 3 sentences here that are talking about speed.
Isn't the one that's causing erosion the rapidly moving water?
Well, slow-moving water can cause erosion, too. Right? I mean, look at the Mississippi. That's just, I mean, look at a lake. Right? I mean, shorelines are eroding from lake shores, right? It's not because there's water that's like rushing by. It's just there's wave action or water from the land slowly moving out to sea, taking some of the dirt with it. So slow-moving water can cause erosion. Fast-moving water can probably cause erosion at a greater rate, but they both cause erosion.
So did you just say like taking the most direct route moving water or something like
like take out rapidly, so then you don't use like
You
fast
can
forward?
do whatever you want with this paragraph. Just as long as what you're doing is making sense. Something to add? Anything else you want to preserve on here? So speed might have something to do with it, or movement of the water might have something to do with it. Directness, I think, has something to do with it. What else needs to be preserved as an independent clause?
Slow down.
How to prevent it? Okay, so that's obviously something you want to get to. So directness, speed, and prevention. That's what the paragraph's about, right? So revise this paragraph, isolate those three elements in independent clauses, and build all the rest of the stuff around it, and non-essentials or introductory elements. So think about this. When you're writing this 20-page research paper with all of this sort, I mean, think about how you're going to be like gathering all this research and data and then being able to put it into paragraphs that move and control the reader's reactions and thoughts and stuff. You're going to be really good. Put this on paper 5. It's going to be fun to read. When someone's putting it, or you don't put forth the effort and you make my job miserable, right? And then I have to sit there and just drag behind the bus. But when you control information like this, right, you put things in a way that my brain wants to process it, like anybody else's brain, it makes my reading job easy. Putting my feet up and looking out the window. I really do. I mean, I find myself in my body language, like when I'm reading a good paper, a lot of times I'll find myself kind of sitting back in my chair in my office and just kind of, you know, letting it pour out. But the bad papers, I'm like hunched over and I'm just like tense. You know, I mean, that's, right? I mean, help me out. So next week we'll do sentence types, and then we'll look at your papers to find out what kind of sentence variations you've got. And then the following Monday is the revision day. And then when you get back from Thanksgiving break, turn that paper. It's all over. So you got all Thanksgiving break to do this. How generous am I doing that? Right? Giving you all that time on Thanksgiving. That's pretty good.
She was thankful.
What else are you going to do with all that time on Thanksgiving? Well, you know, right, like, I'm thinking to myself, you know, that this is probably more preservable than these. In other words, those seem to be examples of something, right? So you might want to think about non-essentials for those or something, right? I mean, just trying to think of what we can do with that. I just don't find it to be the most important thing. Remember, as you write this, I want to see the different types of phrases labeled and identified, right? I mean, underline them, tell me what you're using. If you can use all 5 phrases in this, I'll put a little star next to your name. Okay, so now what you've got here is a dependent clause, not one of the
This
phrase.
one,
Mhm.
this one.
So water, really directly, can wear away line, okay? Now the erosion process to be pretended. Okay. Yeah, label all that.
This doesn't seem. Because there's no, I'm not talking about those. Like, I'm not-
Flowing indirect routes, I mean, yeah, they kind of,
Look at the one that is full.
also what happens here is your non-essential elements coming at the end of the sentence, which is a position of importance. We're now kind of subverting the whole order of things. We want to see the most important element be an independent clause at the end, not your non-essentials. Right after the end. That's what you're doing. Okay, so this isn't going to be a file. This is a non-essential independent clause. It's a non-essential element, it's just not a positive. It's a non-essential clause. And this might be positive because it's ING words. This is a non-essential associated. Your general sense here. Yeah, this is look at the verb. Taking all directions causes errors. Please put this up for a second. All right, let me tell you, I mean, this is, look, I'm not expecting you to be perfect on the first time through, I'm expecting you to make mistakes. So let's take a look at some mistakes. So in this example, so taking the most direct route, there's the gerund, right? So you're only going to mark up to the verb, right? So underline just up to the verb. Taking the most direct route causes rivers, which flow out to sea, to flow quickly down the sides of mountains and slowly on flat terrain. So let's take a look at that sentence, right? And I want to tell you why this is a very sea-level sentence. Maybe you can explain it for me. You explain to me why you think this is. Why do I think this is a sea-level sentence? Anybody? Look at what's at the end of the sentence. The independent clause is taking the direct route causes rivers to flow quickly down the sides of mountains and slowly on flat terrain. Is it quickly down the sides of mountains and slowly on flat terrain the most important part of this paragraph and the most important part of the things we want to talk about? No, but look where it is. It's at the end of that sentence. And so now, when I get to the next sentence, it says, this movement of water wears away the land. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like that next sentence has to come in order to rescue that first sentence, because the first sentence was kind of bumbling. So, also what's a problem here is that this is not in a positive, right? Remember, that, which, and who, when they come in the middle of a sentence, represent dependent clauses, right? Because they take verbs. There's the verb right there. Right? So this is not in a positive phrase, it's a non-essential dependent clause. We know about dependent clauses, that, which, and who, we've identified them. Those are the ones that operate in the middle of a sentence. Those that operate at the beginning of sentences are those that begin with when, while, if, since, although, because, etc. Right? So be careful when you're labeling. And the same thing happens here. Look at the last one. Erosion, the wearing away of land, right? Wearing away, ing word, that's not a positive, that's participle. But the independent clause here is erosion can be prevented. That's a pretty good, straightforward sentence. But if you take a look at what he's doing here, the movement of sentence structure doesn't exist. It's just one subject, verb, subject, verb. Look at taking the direct route causes. This movement wears away. Erosion can be prevented. Hitting me in the head with a hammer. Ding, 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 right? It's just one right after another. You can control it better than that, right? Start moving some stuff up into introductory elements. Get some movement and flow. All right. Yeah, you got your big head. It's harder at the paragraph level, right? Because you're trying to control the flow of ideas to a certain point. Just doing the sentences is one thing, but now putting those sentences together and creating the paragraph, and then think about what you're doing with an entire paper. You should be tired after doing this.
So for the positive, how erosion, that's what it is.
Right. So I would say the process, to make it clear that you're talking about it now, with like now. Right? The process of wearing away the land.
Okay, so it's not just like because I was kind of looking at like we could take this and replace it here.
Right. So yeah, and it's the problem here is that it's more of an adjective instead of a noun replacing a noun. Right? It's the wearing.
No, I'm talking about her. You should really think she's she's got her
Okay.
It's no, she doesn't have any comments. I have. She thought when you said umbrella, she was like, wait, where's he going?
Hold on, she's still saying.
She keeps talking about it. Why did she talking about it? Sorry,
There's no bus.
I know.
I figured it.
I know.
It's a state of mind.
Okay.
Anybody got this? Feel comfortable with it? Anybody like writing this and thinking, man, I got good control over this? Nobody's at that stage yet. Nobody's so quiet. All right, so that's going to be a dependent clause, though. That's the which, right? Yeah. River take. Moving water causes.
Yes.
No, water causes. Moving is just an adjective describing water. So you just really kind of had these non-essential elements in the middle of your sentence. You're still going such a verb, such a verb.
I think you might be.
You're not going to label that in for our purposes, but yes, that's a prepositional trait. You're not going to put this comment.
I didn't know.
You're not going to be able to do it in a positive. That doesn't make any sense. Let's just put it up. All right, so here's a shot at it, right? I mean, this one does the same thing twice for the first two sentences, which, I mean, it's better than not doing anything, right? All right, so take a look at this one. Flowing directly out to sea allows rivers to cause erosion. So flowing directly allows, this is the gerund. And then flowing down mountains or across lands, rivers move at various speeds that cause the land to wear away. Now, take a look at this. Flowing directly allows rivers to cause erosion. Rivers move at various speeds that cause the land to wear away, and then trees, shrubs, and grasses can be planted. So in terms of the independent clauses, yeah, that's doing a pretty good job. She's got an introductory phrase here, an introductory phrase here. She's got a gerund here. Not bad. This one's the infinitive, this one's the participial. She doesn't have any non-essential elements, even though she was trying, and she kind of made a situation worse, but it's all right. But let's read this. I'm just gonna read this out loud to you. You tell me if you get a sense of continuity and flow. Flowing directly out to sea allows rivers to cause erosion. Flowing down mountains or across lands, rivers move at various speeds that cause the land to wear away. To prevent erosion, trees, shrubs, and grasses can be planted in these areas. What are you doing that for?
Only because it's the flowing, and the next sentence flowing. So
Yeah.
that makes it choppy. but-
There you go. Right. So the two flowings there, even though they're serving different functions, one's a gerund and one's a participle, it's that repetition that kind of gets you. And I'm not so sure I like that first sentence anyway. That flowing allows rivers to cause erosion. It's like rivers are out there asking for permission to cause erosion or something. Right? I mean, I think that allows bit. I don't think that really works well as a verb there. But it's not bad. I mean, look, this is a very B+, A- shot at this. Right? That's getting there. Good control over the independent clauses. We know what we want to accomplish. Good movement with the transitional elements, those secondary levels. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Good job. All right, we're running out of time. So I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to give papers back.